Someone kicks off. Ken, ready? Go ahead, Sal.
Coach, in your mind, where did this game turn?
Gosh, there's more than a point. Obviously, there's some opportunities we have in the first half where, if we're better with the football and we handle some really adverse situations. We've got them on their heels a little bit. Our defense has them on their heels a little bit. And we survived some horrendous stuff that could have gotten away from us early, and we hang in there, and then, like I say, we battle back and get a lead in the third quarter. We're doing some things defensively that are a little bit off the beaten track, and that was being effective. But they looked at it for too long, and to their credit, they make a big play at the end of the first half, and they get a big pass, and then they calm down and start running the ball with that bubble. And but as I say, it's not a question so much of being worn down as a question of just trying to stay a series ahead in terms of what they were up to. And I thought we, for the most part, we were able to do that. The guys did a nice job of managing some personnel challenges that we had and had those guys. But offensively, we've got to hold on to the ball. My hope was that they wouldn't have that many looks at us defensively. We would possess the football. We would do what we do. Obviously, we were playing a little bit left-handed. The most disappointing thing to me is the ball on the ground, and of course those penalties, which are the procedural, the unforced errors, which that's tough.
Yeah, you haven't seen anything like that here in your tenure at Army. The amount of false start penalties.
Yeah, no, that's so uncharacteristic. I mean, that's something we really pride ourselves on. We work so hard on. So. Some of those wrinkles, I guess what I want to say is maybe some of those wrinkles that we were trying to compensate for some personnel challenges, the wrinkles were harder for us than they were for our opponent. But frankly, in the offensive line, at least, we were able to keep it pretty consistent for those guys.
Is this a step back in your mind after that?
Well, what it is. It's as I say, it's every week's a battle. Every week's its own monster, and we had some built-in challenges coming out of last week, and we had a plan, and a lot of those things were that we found some things that are going to stay a part of us as a result. But we didn't have it. We didn't have we kicked 3 field goals in safety. That's going to make it hard to win a Division I game.
Are you concerned about the scoring production?
Yeah.
With Larry out,
we need to find some production. There's no doubt. And obviously, the whole thing is exacerbated by an opponent who really understands what they're looking at. There's no mystery about what we do offensively to those guys. They've run that offense in their past. They know exactly what they're looking at. They prepare well for it. So again, some of those personnel challenges we had, again, playing a gifted opponent, they're good up front. They really are. Obviously, the Whitlock guy's a little nightmare, and So again, it was just a little bit of a perfect storm. However, the turnovers and the penalties don't need to be in our way, and that takes us off the field, and it puts us on a longer field, and it allows that offense to keep looking at the defense and find some answers.
Go ahead, Ron.
Coach, what was the rationale of running that last play of the first half when in a play in that situation either has to be out of bounds or literally drop the ball on purpose, it seems?
Yeah. We were trying to get the ball on the sideline. It was just, there was no way where the ball was thrown that we could get that done. And we're not trying to throw. That's not where the ball's supposed to be.
You have a follow-up, Ron? Do you have a follow-up?
No.
Go ahead, Ken.
Ken Kreitzer, Sons of the American Legion Radio. Terry Baggett had a good game, a lot of speed to the outside on plays, but you're playing without your 2 best running backs, Larry Dixon, Ray Maples. How did the other players fill in, did you feel, today?
We'll have to slow it down and see. Obviously, as I say, I thought Terry was making a lot of yards after somebody was hitting him. We got him started some, but sometimes he had to get himself started there. So it's obviously we're dabbling in some things where we could put the ball in his hands. When you're playing an opponent if you're in our spread, and you've got one running back on the field that they don't want to see, they can make sure it's hard to get the ball in his hands. And So that's where we got into the eye some and some things like that, where we could put the ball in his hands without necessarily leaning, regardless of which way they wanted to lean defensively. We'll have to evaluate the film to see how we are.
Coach, on defense, the front three were putting a lot of pressure on early, the safety by Glover in the early going. Was it hard to maintain that type of pressure on Wake Forest from the front line?
Well, as I say, we had some wrinkles in there that had them on their heels maybe a little bit initially, but there's no doubt they thickened it up. They got into some seven-man protection and thickened it up on us, and we were leaning on our linebackers to generate some of that, and they've got to be able to move. If they end up down the middle of one of those big guys, they're going to have a hard time getting back out. That last drive where they're able to hand the ball off, that's kind of what gets us. They just, we're as you say, we're a little bit banged up front, and then we're trying to fill in with linebackers, so we were a little bit light.
Go ahead, Sal.
Coach, what made Whitlock effective? Was his quickness off the snap? Was that?
Yeah, he's quick. I mean, there's a lot of things about him, but he's, as we said going into the week, a very different challenge than the one that those guys had faced. We've been seeing an odd front here for a few weeks, and we've seen different kinds of nose tackles, good players at nose tackle, but different kinds of players. He's a different challenge because of the quickness. The other guys were big, strong, and not bad athletes, don't get me wrong, but obviously that guy was playing at a different speed.
On the final play of the first half, did you want to throw the ball? You said it wasn't where it was supposed to.
We're trying to get the ball. Yeah, we're trying to get him out of bounds, but the ball was thrown where he had to lay out to catch it inbounds. I mean, you'd rather him just let it bounce and throw one more in the end zone.
Okay, all righty. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks. Thank you, Coach.
All righty, from my right, quarterback Angel Santiago. Oh, there he is. Richard Glover, Terry Baggett, Daniel Gruchowski, and Jeffrey Bacon. Let's open up for questions. Please identify yourself and your organization before you ask your question. Go ahead, Sal.
Angel, can you just talk about how you feel after this one? It was a game where you guys were leading kind of late in the third quarter and just kind of got away from you guys.
It's definitely disappointing, coming off of, somewhat strong performance against Stafford and coming and play how we did today. We're definitely tremendously better than what we showed today.
Jeff, how do you feel about the result today, considering how hyped you were to play this game?
We lost. How are we supposed to feel after a loss? We're not playing to lose out there. And after a game like this, no disrespect to Wake Forest, but they didn't beat us. We beat ourselves. And that's a carryover from last week. No disrespect to Stanford. Stanford's a great program, but that's us messing up. That's not them doing nothing crazy. Everything they threw at us, we could handle, and everything they threw at us, we did handle. But it's just those couple times that we slip up. We need to learn from this. When is it gonna get to the point where we done slipping up? When is it gonna get to the point where we're gonna play consistent football? You know what I'm saying? You play a team like Wake Forest, yeah, they're good. No disrespect to them, but they shouldn't have won that game. Point blank, period. We gave them that. That's us.
What has to change, Jeff?
Consistency. We need to play consistent. It's not enough just to smack a running back or smack a receiver one time. It's like Glover, the D-line was balling, but it's not enough for them to just ball one half, one quarter. We need to be hungry for the entire game.
Kenny, go ahead.
And Ken Kreitzer, Sons of American Legion Radio. I just asked Rich Glover about the safety and how was it difficult to maintain pressure on Wake Forest as the game progressed?
It wasn't really that difficult to maintain pressure on them. They had good coaching and they made some adjustments and ran some draws to try to get us out of position. They know we're quick. We move off the ball. We're not trying to stick on their offensive linemen. So So they tried to use our momentum against us and run those quick draws with the quarterback. And 9 times out of 10, we'll make that play. But on the 10th time, we can't let them slip up and gain first downs in critical situations.
I'm just going to ask Angel, you didn't have Larry Dixon or Ray Maples with you today. How difficult is it for you to have to work with a new group of running backs?
Ray and Larry are tremendous players. You know, they're a big part of this offense, but we have depth at those positions. And what it comes down to is we went out there and we didn't execute.
I was going to ask Dan, you had 3 field goals today, but you might have had a chance at the end of the first half. How far could you try for a field goal? It looked like you were going to maybe have to try for 52 yards.
We haven't really tried any long field goals in practice. Coach E tells us to go out there and kind of figure out a distance. We were going with the wind at that point. I possibly could have been 55, 57.
Go ahead, Sal.
Terry, Wake had a couple big plays on offense. How much do you think maybe the tide of the game changes if you guys can get a long play that goes for a touchdown? I mean, you guys were looking for a touchdown all day, it seemed like.
I mean, execution killed a lot of our momentum. False starts in the middle of drives and the end of drives. So, I mean, we get those out of our game. We get small plays. We don't necessarily need big plays. Our offense isn't built on big plays. It's built on continual 4, 5, 10-yard gains. And when we don't execute, when we get false starts in critical situations, I mean, that hurts.
You haven't really seen anything like that since you've been here. I mean, it was uncharacteristic, the false starts there, right?
Most definitely. We didn't do that in practice. We didn't do that last week. I mean, it's something that we gotta address because that's not how we play.
All righty, guys. Thank you very much.
From Randall Hall, it's time for Overtime Online with Tony Marino. I'm Nick DeSank. Wake Forest defeating Army today at Michie Stadium, 25-11 the final score. We just heard Jeffrey Bacon say it. It almost seemed, though, Tony, as if Army really just beat themselves.
They did. They did a lot of things wrong today. You start with the 5 false starts. That can't happen. You start with putting the ball on the ground twice. That can't happen. And offensively, Nick, they just never got going. And I think you can blame it, whether it's early in the drive, late in the drive with those penalties. That was key. Just stop their offense today. The defense, I thought, played admirably today. But when it came down to it, you've got an 11-10 lead. It's the third quarter. There's 3 minutes and 44 seconds left. You've got to find a way to finish that game today. And the offense for Wake Forest just really tuned it up when they had to. And those 2 touchdowns, that was the difference in the game.
The total yardage in the contest separated by just 3 yards, yet the score a 14-point difference. We heard Terry Baggett say as well, that obviously is going to need to be a key in practice this week is for Coach Ellerson to find a way to minimize these penalties. This Army moving in the wrong direction. What do you think this does for the team after coming off such just an incredible performance against Stanford now here?
Yeah, and I think Jeff Bacon even alluded to it. Last week, they still lost last week. And I think, Coach E also alluded to that. The fact is, they still lost last week. So let's not make like it was a positive last week. In fact, if you take a look back at it now, it's 2 negatives in a row for this team. If you take a look back to Ball State, it's 3 negatives in a row. There were some positives to take out of that game. There may be some positives to take out of this game as well. But when you look up at your record, you're 1-3. You're not where you want to be. You were 0-1 this week. There were just too many negatives that you can see if you just change 2 of them or maybe 3 of them, that this game looks a whole lot different, and the scoreboard is probably flipped upside down from 25-11.
Now, we saw both quarterbacks again, both playing well, all things considered, when you look at the stat sheet. Do you think one of them is starting to get a leg up, or do you think one of them is even going to get a leg up at this point?
I'm not sure if anybody. To me, I think Angel Santiago may have separated himself a little bit today. A.J. sure was in the game when the ball went on the ground twice, and he never went back over center after that. So to me, maybe in Coach Ellerson's mind, that says to him, I'm going with Angel. I know Kelvin White came in the fourth quarter and led the team down the field. They weren't able to put it in. That was the first team defense out there for Wake Forest. So you know what? Why not? Let's throw a third guy into this quarterback competition. Coach says it's been an open competition since the first week of preseason camp. So I think that Angel may have separated himself, but that separated from the pack only because AJ was in the game when the ball went on the ground twice. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I do think, though, that it's going to be about practice this week. Who's going to practice? Well, I think Angel is still a starter going in, But who's going to practice well this week? Who's going to give them the best chance to win next week in Dallas against Louisiana Tech?
Now, we saw some different running backs getting into the mix. Obviously, Maples and Dixon not able to play. What do you think it's going to be moving forward? Obviously, we're seeing Terry Baggett really have some pop in his game now that he's injury-free.
Yeah, Baggett now, that's 200 yards plus over the past 2 games. I think at 125 today, 96 last week. He's going to have to be key. He's going to have to carry the bulk of the load. I think they need a little bit more out of Trent Turrentine as well. Hayden Tippett had to carry the load at fullback this week because Larry Dixon was unavailable in the game. Baggett's going to get the bulk of the carries again next week. We're not going to see Ray Maples for a while. I think we know that now. Will Larry Dixon be back next week? I think we certainly hope so. Really just watching him on the sideline, I thought we'd see Larry Dixon today, and we didn't. He looked like he was ready to go. Obviously, he wasn't. The coaches and the training staff made that decision. But Terry Baggett's going to have to carry the bulk of the load at the halfback position, certainly. And I think they need a little bit more out of Trenton Turrentine back there as well.
Yeah, we saw Xavier Moss make 6 catches today. I believe that's a career high for the freshman. Really brings an element to this offense that I don't think Army fans have seen in a little while.
No, and it's welcome back. And even though he's only a freshman, welcome back Xavier Moss. Had a great performance in week 1. Certainly had a lot of people talking after the game against Morgan State. It disappeared for a little bit for obvious reasons. He's a talented guy, and other defenses were looking to shut him down. In an Army offense, you're not going to see wide receiver too much, but there's certainly a lot of talent there to see. He had a great game today. He found a way to get to the football. If it wasn't thrown right at him, found a way to get himself open. So yards after the catch is going to be key for him, and I think that is something with him that you're only going to see improve as he grows here at West Point.
Now Army moves on next to take on Louisiana Tech, a game being played down in Dallas. What is the key that you think we should watch for or listen for those of us listening to Rich DeMarco on the radio call next week in that next game?
I think next week it's going to be interesting to see the defensive lineup that Coach Ellison and his staff put together to start the game. Why? Because he alluded to in the postgame here, there were some things he liked personnel-wise out there. So now that he knows what personnel can do what out there, even though some guys have been nicked up and he's plugged some guys in, they're going to be able to adjust their scheme. I think advance the scheme a little bit from what they had against Wake Forest, advance the scheme to the defensive scheme that they're able to play next week. So to me, that's one of the things you want to watch. Defensively, how do they come out next week? What is the talk this week? Let's listen to the staff. What is the talk about the defense? Do they feel, and I think they do, that they can do some more things next week, that they can adjust maybe a little bit quick on the fly? That's going to be interesting to me. And as far as offensively something to watch, how are they going to get better? Is Larry Dixon going to come back? Keep an eye on that throughout the week. And those are things, when game day comes up, you want to know the answers to those questions. And if the answers to those questions are what I just said, then I think Army's got a very good chance to pick up their second win.
Well, we'll have, 6 more days and a couple hours to find out, and we'll see. Thanks so much, Tony. This has been Overtime Online for Night Vision. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon as Wake Forest defeats Army by a final score here at Mikey Stadium of 25-11. For Tony Marino, I'm Nick DeSanctis saying so long from West Point.